It should be live.
Oh, let me get the check up for the share out. What's up, YouTube? If you're there, you know how it is when we start these episodes. Oh, Ryan says he's coming.
Great, great. Always good to have all four on for this so we can look back on it.
And we are live.
All right,
Boys,
Jackson,
girls,
you ready?
Ninjas.
I'll give it just a minute there to see if anybody else
Okay.
comes in. But yeah, we'll have to look at our season preview questions too to see what's happening. But I guess definitely don't know if you want to look at that before an SEC play or not. We already got most excited player for me was JP Pegues. R.I.P.
Woof. Woof.
Everybody else has got some exciting ones. When do you think Ryan said he's coming soon, or we should hold on to him, or just he'll come in whenever
I think
he's
we
ready?
can just let him jump in when he gets here. Because I can stay on for about an hour and we're 10 minutes in. So
Cool. Yeah. All right, Ben or Matt, whenever you're ready, we can go.
All right, let's go. 3, 2.
All right, you're back with the Jungle Auburn Basketball Podcast. We're doing our SEC preview. We know that we're locked in for every game and excited for every little matchup, and we'll talk all offseason about basketball, but I know a lot of Auburn fans don't truly engage till SEC play, so I'm hoping this can be your guide. If you haven't been watching the out of conference, you really missed out on some great basketball. It's not like the past. It's not like 10 years ago. It's not even like 3 years ago. We had some amazing matchups. Ben will go through here in a bit of some of the accomplishments we had, but man, it was a fun ride. Go back and listen to some of the episodes. Go back and listen to the season preview, even if you want to. But this one will hopefully be your guide to what's going to happen in the SEC. So if you want to catch up, this is it. We don't always ask for this, but do us a favor before this episode. Go into your podcast app, click, share, copy it, and send it to a friend that hasn't been paying attention so they can be kept up with for SEC play so that you and your friends can talk about it. Wish them a happy New Year's. We're doing a crossover episode here at War Report. We thank Ike Jones for coming on. You'll hear more from him in a second. Love our guys over at War Report. And last thing I want to talk about before we really dive in is a bit of sad news. An Auburn alum and the same, me and Ben Young and Ryan Norman all went to Alabama Christian Academy, Montgomery. And Drew Dolphin sadly died in New Orleans during the terrorist attack in the last week. We're thinking about him. He went to the same high school that we went to, three of us on this podcast. He went to the same college that four of us went to in this podcast. So I didn't meet him personally, but I know he was good friends with Ryan Norman's little brother, and we're thinking about his family, and it just can't imagine, that tragedy. I can't imagine what his family's going through. So just wanted to take a second to talk about him and say we're thinking about him before we start. So just had to say that, and we'll dive into some SEC preview here. And Ben is going to break down, if you missed out on what happened in this out of conference amazing schedule, Ben, break it down for us.
Well, Jackson, it starts off with us scheduling some of the toughest competition in America. We scheduled Purdue and Birmingham, last year's national runner-up. We agreed to play Houston, one of the top second weekend teams in America in the last decade, in the Toyota Center, basically in Houston's backyard. We went on the road to Cameron Indoor to play against Duke, and we played against some true blue blood top-tier talent in the Maui Invitational. And what did we do? We doubled our program's total wins against ranked opponents in the out of conference. We had 4 ranked non-conference wins coming into this year, and now we have 8. So Bruce's squad continues to make history. We made history hanging our first banner of the season, winning the Maui Invitational Tournament with huge comeback win over Iowa State, and then trouncing North Carolina and Memphis to take home the Maui crown. And we currently have the #1 KenPom team in America. But not just that, we have the #1 overall most efficient offense, and that is out of over 600 teams. But perhaps the most impressive stat, one that Ryan Storm and Norman brought to us and that I know is near and dear to Matt's heart, we are leading the nation in assist to turnover ratio. We are averaging 2.21 assists to 1 turnover. We are tied with Iowa State and South Alabama with the fewest turnovers in all of college basketball at only 114 through 13 games. It has been one of the most incredible non-conference basketball seasons ever.
Incredible stuff. It's been a ton of fun to watch. I mean, I guess the big question I have maybe for Ike is, have you ever been more confident in Auburn basketball than right now going into SEC play?
Oddly, yes, but this team is definitely better than the teams that I was this confident in. The Jabari Smith Walker Kessler team, I was like, oh, this is going to be a team, and that was not the case. But now this team is stacked. I mean, there's just no two ways about it. I've talked about this a few times. I ask people, tell me where you think the weakness of this team is, and I'm saying I'll tell you you're reaching.
I've got a couple of stats pulled up over here. They're interesting. Thinking, how much we're dominant. We have one of the hardest schedules out there, but yet Johni Broome leads the SEC in rebounds against probably the hardest schedule that any SEC plays. He also leads the SEC in blocks, which we love. So Johni Broome's really filling up the stat sheet over here. I'm not seeing many other Auburn players here, but we all know. Oh, and there's another one. Number 4 in scoring, Johni Broome. So that's a lot of Johni Broome in there. Do you want to talk anything about Johni Broome? Tell us how dominant he's been.
Yeah, I mean, he's player of the year, right? Like to this point, if the season ended right now, he's definitely national player of the year. He's improved his game so much coming back this season that it's remarkable year over year, because he was good last year. But yes, this year he's just been absolutely dominant. I think the thing that I like most about Johni Broome is he doesn't look like he's trying to force anything. His ability to pass out of the double team this year has been amazing. And I think that that's been the biggest thing that's helped this team. Them knocking down the shots, of course, helps, right? So his assist numbers look good. But just his ability to pass out of the double team, I think, is probably the most dynamic portion of what makes this offense so efficient.
Matt, we have our first question on here is biggest surprise of the season. I don't know if this is your biggest surprise. I know Johni Broome could get better. Did you think he could be this good? National Player of the Year good like this? Not just national player, like he is like far away the best player. I don't even know who second place is right now. Maybe Cooper Flagg. I'm not even sure.
Yeah, I think Cooper Flagg is just getting a lot of hype because he's a freshman, not because he's playing better than everybody else. But and Cooper Flagg's good. I'm not trying to say he's not a good basketball player, but Player of the Year hype. Maybe just because they got to put somebody else in the conversation, but not because he's the best player in college basketball. But yeah, I mean, I did not expect him to be this good, right? You expect him to come back and be dominant, but his efficiency is through the roof. Like literally, the only thing I can say about Johni Broome is you wish he makes more free throws, but I think he deserves to get to the free throw line more often than he does. So he would score. He probably would score average like 30 points if he actually went to the free throw line every time he was supposed to. But yeah, he's not my biggest surprise of this season. The biggest surprise for me on the positive side, because there's a negative surprise that's out there for me, but the biggest surprise for me this season, yeah, it's out there. It's there. I'm not going to say it because you didn't ask me that, but I'm sure it will be asked now that I've put it out there. But for me, it's been how much better Chaney Johnson's been. Because he was kind of my biggest question mark. Like, who was going to be the guy that's going to fulfill that Jay Will role of being kind of the secondary post scorer? And he's done admirably this season in just being able to be consistent and making those mid-range shots. He hasn't really found the outside touch, right? So he's not Jalen Williams from that regard. But around the basket, he's been a lot better this year than I even hoped he would be. I think he's been the biggest surprise for me so far this season from a positive standpoint for Auburn.
Matt, biggest surprise?
Yeah, I think it's just how good the team is offensively. You kind of know what you're getting on the defensive side with Bruce Pearl's teams. And I don't think this team has gotten to their defensive ceiling, which is really exciting. I think they still have some ebbs and flows on that end. But to have an offense that efficient, Jackson, you talked about it a few weeks ago. It's like, do we really have the best offense in America? It's just a weird thing to be watching your team. You don't necessarily know it when it's happening, but the shots, we're getting just great looks, the assists, the sharing of the ball. I was telling somebody at work today, this just feels like the pinnacle of Bruce Pearl basketball with a team of 9 seniors and 2 freshmen. And everybody kind of has their role, Jackson. You've talked, and maybe that's my biggest surprise that it's not always the roles that we thought everybody would be in, but going into SEC play, it just feels like everybody is locked in and willing to accept their role, and we know who needs the ball, and we know who is going to cover when somebody gets in foul trouble. And to do that in the midst of this non-conference schedule says a lot about the players, but also the staff as well.
Surprise, Ryan Norman has joined the podcast here. We weren't sure if he was going to make it or not. So we'll bring him in here to see what his biggest surprise is of the out-of-conference schedule so far.
Yeah, I mean, I think my biggest surprise has just got to be just people might have touched on it already, just how efficient we are on offense. I mean, the ball moves so well. They're running stuff I don't think we've seen since Bruce Pearl's been there, since Mike Burgermaster's been there. It's like they've been saving stuff for this exact personnel. I'm also surprised at just how little we're turning the ball over as well in the offensive end. We lead the SEC right now in turnover to assist ratio, which, is just kind of mind blowing to me. And Kentucky is a close, second there, but the gap's pretty wide with how well we're doing distributing the ball too. And in previous Bruce Pearl offenses and previous offense generations that we've had throughout our time, here at Auburn, is that the point guard, whenever the shot clock gets down, the point guard is taking the ball out. He's setting a high pick and roll with the guy down low, with either the 4 or the 5, and we're getting kind of a last second shot, maybe not a good look. I can only count maybe on one hand, two hands this year how many times this happened. And coming into this year, I wasn't sure how well we moved the ball. And it's just been kind of a breath of fresh air seeing just how efficient we are on the offensive end. That's got to be my biggest surprise so far.
It felt like 2 or 3 years ago that we had no idea how to play a half-court offense, right? Just maybe 4 or 5, even it's been amazing to watch Bruce Pearl teams evolve. I mean, 6 years ago, we didn't know how to play with a center. 5 years ago, we didn't know how to pass to a center in the half court. 3 years, like you said, we had to turn the ball over and get on fast breaks because our half court offense was so bad. We couldn't pass the ball around. It was constantly the point guard having to get last minute shots. And now it's just so efficient. We're dominating the half court. Most everything we've done on offense, right, is from these half court sets so far. I don't even know if half the time if it's a call played or not, or if every one of them is. And I'm missing that, but just so many good shooters, dominant down low. What are you going to do,
I think against Duke, we had 0 fast break points.
And still kept up
won that game.
A top 5 Cameron Indoor team, Ben, thoughts? Biggest surprise?
We've talked a lot about efficiency. That seems to be the number one thing that everybody has been surprised by with this team, just how efficient it is. And I wrote down that our double big lineup with Janai at the 4 and Dylan at the 5 being one of the most efficient lineups in America with that new starting 5 that we rolled out. But we've talked enough about how efficient and amazing this team is. I got to be honest with you guys. If we were sitting here 5 or 6 weeks ago and you told me, hey, we're going to get out of conference play and JP Pegues is going to be shooting 21% from 3, 21% from the floor, and averaging less than 2 points a game, I would have said this team was in some serious trouble. We are doing all of that, and we missed on our biggest transfer pickup of the offseason. That just shows you how deep this team is and how good Bruce Pearl is as a coach with the guys in his system.
That's the negative surprise that I didn't want to mention. Was
I knew
same vibes.
I knew Ike was taking that one.
Yeah.
I knew Ben's already touching on it. Since no one officially took the JP Pegues completely falling off the roster as their biggest surprise, I'll pick it because everybody else has already talked about all the positives. So I'll talk about the one negative here. JP Pegues, he was supposed to be my player I was most excited to see this year. I was excited to see if we had a competent point guard, which Sharif Cooper and Trey Donaldson last year, which were fine, and they had their good moments, and they were off on their teams doing what they're doing. But I was really looking forward to just a competent point guard that could distribute the ball. And this guy's supposed to come in as an older player, transferred in from, I believe, Furman. It was very exciting to see him, and then he just cannot keep up. He's completely fallen out of the roster. I don't think we'll see him in anything but garbage time in the future. Thank God we've dominated teams so badly so that he can get 3 or 4 minutes every game and hopefully stroke that ego a little bit, because you never know, there might be injuries in the future. But he's completely off the roster, and like Ben said, incredible that we can whiff that hard on our biggest transfer portal get and still be this freaking good. So it's a negative surprise, but in some aspects, it's a positive surprise that we can be this good without him.
He's
Matt, thoughts
just out
on
of
it?
the rotation. He's just out of the rotation, and I think you don't have to go very far back. Javon McCormick is when we talk about all the time his first year, that the first half of that year was not good for him. And Bruce has this way of instilling confidence and keeping guys up. And I hope not, but I would not be shocked if we get to some point in SEC play and our point guard minutes are, Tahad Pettiford and JP McGee's backup. Like that is still very much on the table. And you like having those depth pieces. Jaheim Hudson is kind of that at the power forward right now as well. And it seems like those guys are not hanging their heads. I know it's frustrating. It's not what you sign up for. It's not what you want. Um, but it's a long season, and the grind and the physicality. It's what Bruce talked about in his press conference going into SEC play. It's you just never know. So I'm still glad to have him, and he's on the roster. Just to Jackson, he's falling off the roster. He's still there. He's just not in that 9-man rotation that it seems like they've settled on.
He will
Number-
not be
Jackson-
playing meaningful minutes. He will not be playing meaningful minutes the rest of the SEC unless something bad happens.
And Jackson, one thing that's not going to surprise anybody on this podcast, but I know you're going to love while we're talking our team stats, we are currently tied with San Diego State for second in the nation at 6.5 blocks per game. And we're currently ranked third overall with 85 total blocks through 13 games.
All right, we're on block watch, everybody. The block party is back again. I just loved it. Like 3 years ago, that's all I wanted to talk about was the block party. That's all we were doing. We couldn't make a shot to save our life, so at least we had the block party. That was the fun we were having that year. Now there's just so many things going right that we could be third in the nation in blocks. Jahni Broome can lead the SEC in blocks. I'm like, that's an afterthought because there's so many other things to celebrate. I was trying to figure out here where to put the SEC schedule. The next 3 questions I was going to ask were about things in the schedule. So I think it's a good time for Matt to maybe share a screen, look through the schedule, tell us who we played twice, tell us what the big matchups are, and then we can kind of go through and see what our favorite matchups are, what we're most scared of, a couple questions like that.
You mentioned while Matt's doing that, you mentioned that team that with the block party 3 years ago. We thought that was the bar that was being set for this program with being ranked number 1 that year, having 2 top, 20 NBA draft picks. I mean, think about that team compared to this team and where they were at that points in times and how we thought that team was. They were special in a sense, but we lacked in the guard positions. I mean, let's be real here. And then now looking at this team, how much more complete they are and how that bar is even raised even higher for this team compared to that team. You have to have more confidence now going into SEC play and into the tournament with this team versus that team. It's just crazy thinking about where we were sitting this time 3 years ago, with that team compared to this team. It's just interesting to think about.
Matt, you got the schedule pulled up. Can you let us know? It looks like we start off a little slow, which is nice after a really hot at a conference.
Yeah, I mean, it's just going to be a gauntlet. So everybody knows that. The SEC is really banging the drum, of how difficult this is going to be. I believe it. I know every year it's kind of we'll see in March, how good your conference actually is. But it does feel really tough. These first 5, well, first of all, we play Alabama, Georgia, and Ole Miss. Texas and Oklahoma join the league. So you play the 12 teams once, and then 3 teams twice to make up your 18 games. Georgia, Alabama, Ole Miss, all interesting. 2 of our major rivals, and then you've got the Chris Beard, Ole Miss, Flanagan situation. So that'll be our double home and away. So then it kind of comes down to where do you play the big teams? Okay, so we know we play Alabama twice; they're good. We play Tennessee after our first 5. We play Tennessee at home once. That's big. We play Florida at home once. That's big. We play Kentucky on the road, which none of us, I know those 4 on the pod were not alive.
Is this the year we finally do it? That might be on the question next,
That's one of the big goals. We talked about that the other night in the pod. Like, that's a huge historical. You talk about making history. That's a big one sitting out there. So if you're just looking at the front half, it's not bad. But Jackson, we've been doing this long enough. If you've watched SEC basketball, college basketball, like going on the road, you just better not look ahead. You better not look past anybody. You're gonna have to play well. Texas has athletes. South Carolina's probably the worst team in the league, it looks like. You're going there, and 2 of the first 3 are on the road. So they start with Missouri at home. Hopefully, they can get off to a good start. It is a more manageable first third until Tennessee. But then I want to go to the end.
Number
We're not going to
one,
talk
number
game
one,
by game.
Tennessee. Number one, Tennessee. It's crazy how many
Right now.
people are ranked. Yeah.
We'll see. We'll see where they end up. But the close is pretty nasty. So if you kind of pick up, you go to Tuscaloosa, you host Calipari in Arkansas in Neville Arena, you host Georgia, who's better, you host Ole Miss, and then you go to Kentucky, to A&M, who's been a struggle for us, and host Alabama in the regular season finale. So the last third is going to be a little tougher. So I think the goal for me is like, can you stack some wins early? Can you prove that you're in that position to chase the regular season title, and hope some of your competitors lose, because some of those teams are going to play each other. I don't have all the numbers, but I think Kentucky and Tennessee play each other twice. It gets into those permanent. Eventually, we're going to play more than 18 conference games, but not this year.
You might want to break down just how good the SEC is this year. I was pulling up the AP top 25 here, and I believe we have many teams in there. We should be number 1 in the AP, first of all. It's ridiculous. It's only because we lost at Duke. Everybody knows that's a crazy game. Tennessee's not played a game close to that, and they just won't move them because they haven't lost. But they're 12-0, number 1 in the country, which is crazy. We're number 2. Alabama, number 5. So we have 3 SEC teams in the top 5. Then you have number 6, Florida. Florida has been quite the, not Cinderella or whatever, but we know Al Golden's a good coach, a Bruce Pearl disciple.
Todd.
Was it
Todd
Golden? What did I say? Alan Golden. Never mind. That's
Miami
coach.
Al Golden.
Todd Golden, and he's so they down number 6. I don't know if they played the same as good a schedule as they play at Kentucky to start the season, so we'll know for sure what they are after that game, I believe, or at least if they're legit or not, or if they might jump us in number 1 if they win that one, because they're undefeated right now, 13-0. We've got Kentucky at 10 with their new coach, Mark Pope. Number 13, A&M. So we just talked about through that schedule at the end there. And then we forget that they're a top 15 Texas A&M team. Crazy. 17, Mississippi State. Where's next? 23, Arkansas with Calipari over there in his first season. 24, Ole Miss, which might be similar to the last couple Ole Miss teams where we're not really sure if they're legit or not. But they still have a great coach that's gone to a Final Four. It's just crazy there's this many top 25 teams. I don't know if you might can speak to, I believe Lenardi or whoever does the bracket has so many SEC teams in. Yeah, Ben, speak to it.
So Blake Lavelle, a friend of Justin Ferguson, compiled some incredible stats for the SEC's dominance through their non-conference play. Their overall non-conference record, 185-23. That is 88.9% of their non-conference games the SEC has won. They're 28-19 against Quad 1, 19-3 against Quad 2. On a neutral court, 45-14. That's better than 75% win percentage on neutral courts. Our record versus the AP top 25, 21-8. And then the record versus the other power conferences, 59-19. Once again, over 3/4 of those games are W's. They've got the KenPom stats here. Every team inside of the SEC is inside of the top 65 teams in KenPom. Missouri and LSU are just outside of the top 50, but they're inside the top 55. And South Carolina, the quote unquote worst team in the league, is that team at 65. For comparison, the Big Ten has 4 teams rated lower than 65. The Big 12 and Big East both have 5. And the ACC, the one storied basketball conference of North Carolina and Mighty Duke, has 12 teams ranked below 65 in KenPom on their rosters right now. I mean, the SEC has just been tearing through non-conference teams left and right.
Put that into context a bit too. There's 68 teams in March Madness. And what was South Carolina, number 65?
65.
So I know you reserve a certain amount of those for conference champions in the lower leagues and everything, but there's only 68 teams that even go to the we used to beg to go to the tournament. Now every SEC team falls within the ranking that should make it in the tournament.
The current record is 11 from the Big East in 2011. And right now the SEC is projected to field 13 teams in March Madness.
13 teams.
We won't get 13. We won't get 13, but I do think it'll be double digits. And the crazy stat to me, if you're a metrics nerd, there is a real chance that this Auburn team plays 20 to 22 quad 1 games out of their 31 regular season games, which is I don't know if I've ever. Maybe there's been some dominant Big Ten and Big East runs back in the day that were kind of like that, but I've never seen that in the SEC and especially at Auburn. So just the amount of resume building. Auburn's already built a great foundation for their resume, but if you're looking ahead to March, which we have a good enough team to kind of, I never do that. I'm always really conservative, but this team is just that good that you're already looking ahead to, can Auburn be a 1 seed? Can Auburn be the number 1 overall seed? But they absolutely have that path in front of them. It's just going to be a matter of how much the SEC beats up on each other, I think.
There was some stats out there, right? That you already said it's like an historic accomplishment for the SEC to be this good. I think there was only 2 other conferences since KenPom started that have played this well, and they're at a conference.
Yeah, if I
And on
remember
top
right,
of
it's
that,
the
I believe
2011 Big East, and then I think maybe the 2014 ACC.
And on top of all of it, I believe they said with KenPom going back all the way to the start of it, only maybe correct me if I'm wrong, I saw something about only undefeated Kentucky in like 2015 has matched or is better in KenPom than Auburn is right now, which is just absolutely insane. It makes you wonder, if we just hadn't had to go to Cameron Indoor, if we had just pulled that out, what kind of hype we'd be getting right now if we were undefeated. There'd probably be people talking about if we could go undefeated the entire time. But this is a gauntlet. I'd love to go through here. Maybe we'll start with Ike on this one, of which one of these games you're most excited to watch.
I mean, I think the easy choice is the game against Tennessee, just because I don't know what Tennessee really is right now, just because they haven't really played anybody. But the game I'm going to choose that's going to be like a sneaky game that I think is actually going to be good is going to be the one right out of the gate versus Missouri. Just because I think Missouri's a little bit better than people give them credit for, and it's at home, so I'm a little less.
Are you telling me if I gave you one ticket to an Auburn basketball game this season, you could only go to one game? You're sitting in the best seat. You're picking the Missouri game?
No, if I could only go to one game, I'm probably going to Kentucky, just because I want to.
Okay, all right.
But I just think it's going to be a really good game. Like, I think Missouri is going to be that game where you're just like, I didn't expect it to go this way. Now I don't think they're going to lose the game, but I think Missouri is going to be better than people. Here's why. I actually wrote an article for our website about the biggest issue that I think Auburn has is the whistle, right? Like, I just don't think Auburn gets the benefit of the whistle the way that they need to. And Missouri is one of the best teams in the country at drawing fouls. And so that worries me a little bit about this game, is that Missouri makes it into a game where Auburn is just in so much foul trouble that they're having lineups out there that they're not accustomed to having, because guys are just playing out of their normal rotations and everything like that. So I think it makes the game more interesting than it looks like on the surface. And so I think that's the game that I'm most interested in, just off the rip. SEC play, physicality, a Missouri team that's going to go out there and they're going to draw fouls. It's going to be, I think it's a very interesting matchup this season.
I highly respect that Ike doesn't think ahead. Ike's got that first game on the schedule. He's so excited for the SEC. He's a coach. You could try to be a coach. Like, if Bruce Pearl was asked what game he was most thinking about or most excited about in the SEC, he'd say Missouri too, because that's how coaches are.
It is an interesting matchup because you're right. They can muck it up. They mucked it up against Florida. They did this. Kansas. They did against Illinois. Like, they have a lot of athleticism, a lot of length. Now, can they, can we match that? Can we turn them over? Like, they're not great offensively, but you're right. They're athletic.
But they lead the nation in bench points.
Yes,
number 1 in the nation in points off the bench.
Yeah, so it is an interesting game, and I'm curious to see what the line is going to be coming out of it, because they are tested. They beat a Kansas team that we thought was pretty good, but they're sliding pretty bad at the moment.
Kansas and North Carolina are the two teams that I don't even know what to make of them this year, because you come into the season, you're thinking, oh man, these are going to be two juggernauts again, and they're just not. Like,
they were saying no one was going to beat Kansas this year at one point. They were saying like we could never jump the.
I hate to get on the Kansas soapbox here, but they bring in the top transfer class in the country, including a Final Four starting shooting guard from Alabama, Rylan Griffin, who doesn't see the floor. They don't play anybody. They play the same guys as it did last year, and it is horrible to watch. I don't understand what Bill Self's doing right now.
Getting the Kansas breakdown, the SEC preview. Ryan, what is your SEC game you're most excited about here? Is it the Missouri game?
the Texas game is kind of fun to me because
We're not going down the whole schedule. Pick your favorite one. Are we going to start going down?
We each should have a separate game. I love this. Come on.
I mean,
Break
like I said,
down
the
the
easiest
schedule.
one is Tennessee. Like you just say it's
Yeah.
the
I'm
the
not
team
picking
that's
that
number
one.
one.
I'm not
Yeah.
picking that one.
I was just trying to go away from what I thought everybody else was gonna pick. But Tennessee's an easy one. It's just like it's a lob to Ja'Kai Howard. Like, what are we doing here?
I don't think Ryan's picking that one either. What are you picking, Ryan?
I thought I put on our little sheet at Kentucky just because that's one that I think we could get if we catch Kentucky on they're just going to jack up threes against us, let's be honest. And so can we run them off the line? Can we match up with them really well? That's one that we're all about making history. That would be one to make history on.
1988 was the last time we won in Rupp.
Who was alive?
just
Was
share
anybody on this pod alive? Ike, were you alive?
No.
Matt, were you alive?
1988.
Yeah, I definitely was alive.
All right. Looking good. Looking good.
Thank you.
Hey, we're missing the big one though, guys. How many years have we wanted the Alabama game to be on a Saturday? It's at home. It's the finale. Now, I hope we've run away and won the regular season already, and we could just focus on trying to beat the pants off them at home. But it could be the most. I mean, it could be the biggest game in Neville Arena history if it shapes. If Alabama's as good as I personally think they might be, and I think they're going to be in the race down the stretch. That is going to be. You talk about a game to be at. If it comes down to the SEC regular season title, and you got to go through Alabama at home on a Saturday to close the regular season, it does. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. So I'm excited for that one, no matter what. But there's the potential for that one to be meteoric.
Ben, you got another one in here?
Yeah, so listen, I want to stick something else out there because obviously we know about Rupp. We know about the history of the chance to win there. We know about Tennessee. We're getting them at home with how they've been picked over us and we've been disrespected all year. But there is a sneaky, difficult matchup sandwiched in there at the end of the season. We got to go to College Station and play Buzz Williams, a guy and a coach that has had our number again and again and again. Wade Taylor, who's got to be on his 9th year of eligibility somehow. He's been a preseason SEC Player of the Year candidate again and again and again. I think A&M matches up with us a lot better than they did last year. I think it's the one time we're going to see them and we got to go on the road and we got to do it late in the year. That to me is going to be an opportunity with those 2 big road games back to back before that team from up north comes to town, where we're going to find out, is this team as good in March as they have been in November and December?
Yeah. Is that your scariest or is that your most excited? Because that might be my scariest, but not the one I'm most excited about. I'll be dreading that Texas A&M game.
No, again, part of what I'm excited about is this is a team that I will never be afraid for. Everything is go out there and prove it, go out there and take it. They are never going to get a break. I mean, the way that the end of this season is put together with 3 teams that are already projected to contend for this SEC championship crown. I mean, you look at some of the wins that Texas A&M has stacked this year. I'm going to pull them up if I can, because they have beat some incredible teams to start the year. They're currently ranked 13th. They're 11-2. And so far this year, they came out of the gate and stumbled against UCF, who now people are projecting to possibly win the Big 12. But they've got wins over Ohio State, just like we do. They got wins over Creighton, Rutgers, who's not a very deep team, but they're incredibly talented. They got a win over Wake Forest, Texas Tech, and just like us, they managed to beat Purdue. Not by nearly as much as we did, but that game was also in Indianapolis, in the Indy Classic, where we'll be playing next year.
Now, I'm surprised. Yes, we got Missouri for Mike, Texas A&M for Ben, Kentucky for Ryan to finally beat some history, and Matt picked Alabama at home. But I was really between Alabama at home at the end because we clinched the SEC, win the whole thing against our biggest rivals that might be in the top 10 also, against a player that transferred onto their team. We could storm our own court there. We could camp out, all this stuff. But to win the SEC, we might storm, I don't know. And then, Kentucky's history. But no one picked of the 4. I mean, I kind of picked it, but we might have number 1 Tennessee versus number 2 Auburn in Neville Arena. We might hopefully be the epicenter of college basketball for several weekends with all these matchups. But that one, the ESPN hype game for a number 1, number 2 SEC matchup with Tennessee coming in with Rick Barnes in there, who I've just been so irritated with over the years for how good he's had Tennessee. Man, that would be quite the matchup to watch us snatch that number 1 ranking finally. I hope we stay number 2 till
I don't
then,
know if
just
they'll be
to
number 1 by the
snatch
time they get done.
Well, Jackson, here's the thing about
They
that.
might not.
We've got a
Saturday.
gauntlet to run. But Tennessee's going to open against Arkansas. Then they go to Gainesville to play number 6 Florida. Then they got to follow that up with a trip to Austin to play Texas. They get Georgia at home, who Georgia, they might be one of those paper tigers, but they got a bona fide star and they get some pretty good talent. And then they've got to go to Nashville, play Vanderbilt, and then they got Mississippi State at home. So they're going to be limping into Neville a little beat up, I think.
Now we've got our most excited one. Now it's kind of the other flip side of the coin. Who are we dreading the most? And I think I'm just going to go ahead and start because I already brought it up. That Texas A&M matchup with Buzz Williams, who's had our number the same way that I think it was Kermit Davis at Ole Miss, or what's his name at South Carolina back in the day that went to the Final Four. I'm dreading that one. Yeah, Frank Martin, not just because they're going to be good, not just because Texas A&M's had our number with Buzz Williams, but because it's right before the final game of the year, Alabama at home. We should have it on the line if everything goes the way we think it's going to go this year, that we just have to beat Alabama at home. Yet we just have to 4 or 5 days before go to College Station just to completely wipe it out. It could ruin everything in our entire plans. I'm dreading that one by far the most.
How about this? We play at Lexington on a Saturday. We play at Texas A&M that next Tuesday night.
Oh
so
my
you
God. We could make history, feel on top of the world, get crushed down, and then we look up and that Alabama game goes from clinching a sole SEC to, there's 2 or 3 teams in contention. If Alabama wins, we don't get anything, and if we win, we might still tie. A million things could happen if we don't win. That's an absolute gauntlet right there. 2 top 10 teams and a top 15 team, 2 of them away. Oh boy, this schedule's gonna be tough. I guess we go. Who wants to take next one? The one you're most dreading? Maybe Ryan.
Yeah, I know this game's at home, but I got to be honest. The Florida game, it scares me a little bit. They're really good at the guard position. They're pretty deep down low. I mean, it's kind of the same team that brought that last year, but maybe a little better. And that team, at Florida gave us trouble. We just came out. We were on fire in the SEC tournament last year. So we'll see where we're at. That's middle of the season. That's a lot can happen by then. But that one, we never really seemed to play well against Florida, even if it's at home. Last year or 2 years ago with Castleton getting out of the buzzer. I think there'll be a lot of emotional stuff there too, with the stuff that Todd Golden's going on through, and Bruce Pearl and their connection. So it's just going to be a weird game, and so that one kind of scares me a little bit, just with how Florida is and how good they are at the guard position with Walter Clayton, some of those guys. It's just could be a scary matchup for sure. I'm just looking at the schedule and I just see nothing but numbers. It's just wild. Number 12 Oklahoma, it's just nuts.
We didn't remember. Yeah, I looked through it and I was like, oh crap, I forgot to mention Oklahoma because I forget they're in the SEC, but they're also ranked. Right? What's Todd Golden going through?
Just a bunch of craziness about co-eds.
It's another Bobby Petrino situation.
It's more Joey like Freshwater.
Oh yeah. Which one you scared of the most?
Listen, I haven't seen this Auburn team in the last few years in true road games do well. It just hasn't been a thing, right? And the only true road game they've had so far this season, they've lost. So the sneaky one for me, because of how big the game is right after it, is at Georgia. And I know that sounds crazy because I don't know that Georgia's that good a team, but Georgia's a very big physical team. And I just don't want Auburn to sleepwalk into that freaking arena and lay an egg before they have to go try to play Tennessee at home. And that's the one where I'm just like, are they going to be dialed in for that game? Because you're going to be playing Mississippi State right before it at home, right? And Mississippi State's going to be a tough team again this year. And then you got Georgia sandwiched in there between that Mississippi State and that Tennessee game. And I think on the road at on the road at Georgia is a game where I have it circled on my count. Like if I look through it, I'm like possible L's. That one and the Bama game on the road are the 2 that I'm looking at most sternly. Like I don't know, man. Like I just don't like where
Mike White's another one of those coaches too. Yeah. Mike White's always given us trouble at Florida and now at Georgia. So it's a good one.
Matt, what's your scariest one here? Is it Florida or
I would have said Florida. So
at home,
Ryan
Florida.
On that. Yes. Yes. So I'm going to go with another home game that is exciting, and you guys mentioned it, but it's Tennessee. Maybe it's because I live here. Um, I think people are sleeping on. I know they haven't played as hard a schedule as we have. That's a good Tennessee team.
We're
I mean,
sleeping on the number one team.
I don't think people are. When I listen to people in the Auburn stratosphere, we're so mad that they're number one rather than us. I'm not sure anybody's really watched them play very much. I think they're pretty good. They have a lot of talent. And I just think we have done well in that series, but there's been a lot of close games the last few years, and I would fully expect, even in Neville, that's going to be a drag out uh, battle, a real fight. With all the history there, you're right, it could be the epicenter of college basketball. And to me, if I'm Tennessee, I don't know. They might not care about what's going on in our world. I'd be a little disrespected by some of the. I think Auburn has gotten a lot more attention than Tennessee has to this point because of the schedule. So, and I just really selfishly want to win. I hate when we lose to them. I live here in Nashville. I don't like it. So that's one that I'm kind of afraid of.
Ben, scariest.
Yeah, I mean, Matt's got some good points about Tennessee. They're currently the number 21 offense in Ken Palm. Or no, sorry, I'm looking at Houston. They're the number 18 offense in Ken Palm, but they're the number 2 overall defense. And the two teams right around them, Houston is number 1 and Duke is number 3. Two teams that gave us a lot of trouble. Either of those games could have gone either way. I mean, if you want to talk about the matchup that I'm most nervous about because of when it happens, because of what it would mean for this program to win, and because of how likely I think we are to lose it, go into Rupp, man, playing Kentucky. Kentucky is just like Duke. They are a long team. They got a couple of guards at 6'6" and 6'7" that we're going to struggle to defend against. They have a true 7-footer in Amari Williams. He's currently number 4 in the SEC in rebounds. And when we look at places where Janai Broom has struggled in the past, it's going up against these true center type guys. We know that Janai Broom is a little bit more of a hybrid forward type, especially looking forward for his pro prospects. And when he faces these true big, huge 7-foot centers that have some talent, he's struggled in the past. And so that's going to be a monkey that he's going to have to get off his back when we go to Lexington this year.
Here's a question I have for you guys, and you can look through the schedule if you want here, if you've got it pulled up on your own side. We've talked about the ones we're most excited for, talking about the scariest ones. We are in a really special place in this season when I have to ask this question. Are we going to lose a home game in SEC play? Even in this insane schedule with the number 1 team coming to Neville, it's still worth asking because we don't lose a lot of them. Maybe once a year in the SEC play, even when we don't have a team this good. But we have also one of the hardest schedules. So I want to hear your thoughts of if we're going to lose one. If you had $1,000 I gave you and I said put it on there if you're going to win one or lose one, which one's it going to be? I think that's going to be a tough one for myself also thinking about it. But who wants to start? Anybody in particular got a strong opinion on that one?
I mean, I can tell you right out of the gate, what's going to get us if we lose a home game, it's going to be inconsistent guard play. Our shooting at home has not been nearly up to the par that I want it to be. It seems like we're almost better shooters on a neutral court, with the exception of that first game with Miles Kelly right out the gate. We don't have anybody in the top 10 in the SEC in 3-pointers made. A lot of that's due to how this team is built, but there are going to be times where we need to hit 3-pointers. And if we have a cold shooting night, there's some teams in the SEC that can really light it up. Oklahoma is a fantastic 3-point shooting team. Like Ryan already mentioned, Florida is a fantastic shooting team from the outside. Walter Clayton Jr., nightmare to play. We were able to shut him down in a neutral court in Nashville last year for the SEC championships, but in Gainesville, he absolutely torched us.
All right, Ben, I've got to put it on the record so we can look at the end of the season. Yes or no, are we going to lose a home game this year?
No.
All right. Matt's the conservative one, so Matt's ready to roll to say, stop jinxing us, guys. Matt, tell us about it.
Yes, we will lose. I mean, I was just looking. I mean, you play Tennessee, Florida, Alabama, Cal, and Arkansas. I mean,
Mississippi
I'm
State.
just playing the odds. I'm just playing the odds. I say it's not the end of the world, but I do think we lose 1, maybe 2, hopefully 1 or 0 would be ideal.
Ike, we gonna lose a home game this year?
Nah.
All right, Matt. Why
That's
you do this to us? Everybody else is in
Ike.
agreement.
That's why we brought you.
Well, I mean, just like here's the thing: if you look statistically at how efficient this team is, they're efficient in general, but they're more efficient at home. And I talked about they don't get the benefit of the whistle. They do get the benefit of the whistle a little bit more at home. I just the crowd is going to be a factor in games. I just don't think, again, it's not impossible that they lose because this look at the slate, man. You already mentioned the teams that they got to play. The two that kind of give me a little side eye again. It's going to be Florida and it's going to be Mississippi State. Honestly, I'm not as worried about the Tennessee game just because I think that they're going to psych themselves into playing really good for that game. But the style of play of a Mississippi State and a Florida, the way that they attack the offensive glass, I think could like getting extra possessions in Neville Arena is always going to be a good thing, right? And then you've got that kid. God, his name is escaping. His last name is Josh. Mississippi State. What's his name?
Hubbard.
Josh Hubbard.
Oh, Hubbard.
When you got a guy like Josh Hubbard who can just make shots, man, like he's always going to give you an opportunity to be in games. And they play defense really well. They crash the glass really well, and they've got a playmaker out there in Josh Hubbard. So that's a game I'm looking at. And then again, the way that Florida attacks the offensive glass, maybe, but I still think that the home situation makes me feel better about those. If those games were on the road, I would almost assuredly say that they would be losses. But being at home, I think Auburn can get the victory in them.
Y'all want to hear a wild stat? We have 4 players shooting better than 93% from the free throw line. 3 starters in Miles Kelly, Denver Jones, and Chad Baker-Mazara, and cool 5-star Tahad Pettiford coming off the bench, 100% from the charity stripe.
The thing that I hate about that, though, is the guys that go to the free throw line the most have the worst free throw percentage for Auburn. Janai Broome, Ja'Kai Howard, who is now up into the top or the percentage there of guys who's taken more than 10 free throws on the season. Chaney Johnson, Dylan Cardwell, all awful free throw shooters. So
yeah, and the Dylan one is interesting to me because he improved so well last year.
Yeah,
he's regressed
right back off the cliff. Yeah,
yeah, he's regressed back to his average. I mean,
Chad's the only guy who goes to the free throw line
31%
frequently and
on the year.
Yeah, Chad's the only guy who goes to the free throw line a lot that makes them. Denver Jones is a great free throw shooter, doesn't get there a lot. So the guys who shoot it the best don't get to the free throw line, but the guys who are the worst free throw shooters are the ones that are there most consistently for Auburn, outside of Chad Baker-Mazara.
Ryan, we gonna lose a home game this year?
As someone who lives in Auburn, as someone who frequents Neville Arena quite often, as someone who has seen many Auburn wins in that arena, looking at the schedule, the town, the student body, the people here show up when game times are good. The game times are good this year. They're very good. There's a lot of great Saturday games. Ticket prices are already over $200 to $300. I mean, just no. We're not losing at home this year.
All right. A big
and I
all
will be
caps
there
no.
making sure that's the case.
There you go. So far, Matt is
Maybe.
the only one that thinks we're going to lose at home right now. And we play the number 1 team at home. We play several top 10 teams at home.
What do you say, Jackson? Have you answered that?
I'm so conflicted. Here's a question I had for you because I'm blanking right now. Like these seasons are really merging together on me. Jabari Smith, Walker Kessler year. Did we lose at home?
No.
You might remember we didn't lose Texas A&M at home, right? That wasn't that year.
We lost to them on the road, I think. That was the year we swept
that was the
them.
year
We
after.
swept them. Yeah.
So we didn't lose at home. You think? And that
We've had like 1 or 2 undefeated home seasons all the way through.
No,
right?
we've never
Maybe
played a
2 or 3.
It's tough because we've never played a schedule like this either. The SEC's never been this good. So I really want to lean to like a team this good. We've had other seasons where we've been undefeated at home when we weren't even this good. But this season, the teams are so good this year. It's so conflicting. Since I'm 50-50, I got to say, I'm going to be a homer. We're not losing at home this year, fellas. Not losing at home. Matt's the only hater on the podcast. Matt's the only one
you go to War Report for the pure analysis. You come here for the vibes, baby.
Hey, listen, I'm a homer all day, bro. Like, don't even.
This is a classic Matt Jackson dichotomy here, okay? So he's always going to be the more conservative of the two of us, so.
Can I argue for your side? If I'm wrong, let me tell you why I think that y'all could have made a very good bet there. I think the difference with this team and the key is going to be how many times can they be significantly ahead of their opponent, right? Because how many years when we've seen this team struggle on offense, you're in these rock fights that come down to the last possessions. And when you're in those games, that we've had a couple teams that won a lot of them and they kind of barely. This team, I could see, like, could they be up 5 to 10 points on almost everybody they play at the last TV timeout? They definitely could. And if you could put yourself in that position, it's hard to lose. So this team has proven they can blow people out. This team has proven that they can run away and hide, and they can go on these stretches defensively that they just take over, and it leads to the avalanche. And they can go on 20-0 runs, and I mean, there is a scenario where we do go undefeated at home in large part because we're not putting ourselves in danger late in games to where one shot beats you or one mistake beats you. So that would be the argument for me of why I think we could do it. I just think odds are you're going to lose one. So
Canoe Man in the chat, Pocket Watch in the chat, several other people in the chat. Go ahead if you're in the chat right now and copy and paste that thing and send it to a friend because we've got at least a couple, 30 more minutes maybe of Auburn basketball SEC preview. So if you're listening at home on the podcast, check out our YouTubes and Eliza. And this is an odd one because typically we're always on after every single game at the Virtual Tumors Corner. This one's not after a game, so check it out. Mr. Beautiful is also here as always. Mr. Beautiful said Matt Donaldson needs to take the curse off of us. Thank you, Matt, for being the yes that we're gonna lose at home. Because honestly, if you'd all said no, I would have said yes, just for the curse purposes. So we appreciate Matt.
I mean, we've only lost one SEC home game since 2021.
Wow, I was wondering.
No, it's incorrect. We've lost two. We lost. We had Alabama and A&M that one year.
Sorry, two. My bad.
They lost to Kentucky last year.
Yep, and that was the third.
Oh,
one.
sorry, three. My bad.
We're really falling apart on stats here.
Dude, those seasons.
Anybody else got another one? Anyone else another?
Nah, I think those
the seasons are merging together. It is weird,
especially when you have Janai Broome 3 years in a row. You kind of start being like, which season was he doing that?
Well, then I had to be like, okay, Trey 2 year, Alan Flanagan, and it all is kind of meshing together a little bit.
And in 2020, remember that season ended without a March Madness, which is also throwing us off.
Ike, I know you have limited time. I don't know if do you have time for one more question?
Yeah, I got room for one.
All right. This one's kind of, Matt was already kind of starting to go into this a bit and things about how if barring a major injury to one of our players, saying that we stay healthy and we don't win the SEC this year, which again, just like my last question, insane that we're having to talk like this, but that's how good this team is. And if we lose the SEC and all that later on, this is not Homer. We are number one in KenPom. We are ahead of so many teams. So if you're coming on and you haven't been watching and thinking we're being too homerish, this is not being too homerish. Barring major injury, we don't win the SEC. What happened? What went wrong to where we didn't win the SEC?
I think that it will come down to just the kind of what has been the Achilles heel of the team, which is the offensive droughts, right? Whether that is sloppy play / turnovers or just like what happened early in that last game versus Monmouth, where it was just a couple of possessions where they're just coming down, jacking up early shots for no reason, right? And falling in love with the 3-pointer a little bit too much. Because what happens is this year's team, more so than the past, because past year's teams, it was just they didn't have an offensive flow. This year's team is a little bit of like a rec game basketball, where it's just like, all right, you guys made a shot, now it's my turn to come down here and make a shot, or I haven't taken a shot in a while, as soon as I touch the ball, I'm getting a shot up type of thing, as opposed to making sure that if you have one of those games where, you guys mentioned it, where it's a tight game down the stretch, those dry spots there in the middle are what's going to make it difficult. And I think if you have one of those against a team that just comes out shooting lights out like a Kentucky can or like an Alabama can, where they can light it up from the outside, that's where you lose. I think that could be potentially be the thing. But yeah, it's just I don't envision a scenario where they don't win the SEC. So, again, I'm reaching for that.
I mean, yeah, you got to. I think it'll have to be a combination of things. We've had some offensive droughts this year. It's just our defense is so good too. That's the big thing, is we've had other years where offensive droughts, but other team scores and we lose. But this year the defense is so good on top of the offense. But who wants to go next? Maybe Ben?
Yeah, it's going to come down to inconsistent guard play. We've had to already mess with our rotations a little bit. We're hearing that Tahad is going to be playing a lot more pure point with that second unit going into SEC play. So that's going to be a little bit of a changeover for him. And we've had some nights where guys just go absolutely cold. I mean, Denver Jones scoring 0 points against Duke is arguably what prevents that from being a huge win on the road for us. And we already know that JP Pegues is a complete non-factor. So now we have a guy that we were expecting to contribute at the point that's just not there. So our guard rotation has shrunk in a major way. And we're going to be going up against some really, really talented guards. I mean, I don't have their names here right now, but they're in our social media graphic. I pulled almost every talented guard that I could think of and threw them up there going against Janai Broom. And a lot of these guys are big, 6'4", 6'5", 6'6". It's Bruce's longest team ever, but we're going to have to see them lock in on the defensive side like we have all non-conference.
Matt?
Other than just the depth of the league, and that you could find yourself, if you lose one of those key games, you're not only do you lose, but you lose the tiebreaker, right? If we lose to Tennessee, we lose a tiebreaker with Tennessee at the end. So like it can get spooky like that. But if you're looking at on the court, really my only concern right now is perimeter defense on the ball outside of Denver Jones. I think if I'm anxious about anything, people who listen to this pod are sick of me talking about it. But Tahad's getting better. He's developing on the defensive end. Jakai's getting a little better. Not there yet. Chad is really good off the ball. I think he struggles when people drive right at him. I think he just gives up a little size because he's just not big. So that would be a small concern that maybe some teams could pick on. But when you get by those guys, you're going right into Cardwell, Chaney, and Broom. And I love the way we've been defending the 3-point line this year so far. So I feel like we've coached around it, schemed around it really well. But if outside of injuries and the depth of the SEC, I just think maybe our ability to guard on the perimeter consistently could be the one thing that I could be concerned.
So you had guard and perimeter, the league, and what was the other one?
Inconsistent guard play.
Injuries. I mean, if we get, you said injuries. Just how good the league is. I mean, it's not going to be a shame to finish in the top 4 of this league. It's just not. I mean, we all think this team could win the regular season for sure. They could win anything they play. I mean, they've proven that. It's just it's going to be tough. They're going to have to earn it. And the thing that gives me the most hope is how well they handled the physical challenge of Iowa State and Houston. To do that at the beginning of the year, I kind of question some guys on this team and their toughness when it gets hard. So impressed.
You put a bunch of dogs on a plane. What did you think was going to happen?
Yeah, no. But they had to show me. Janai has been a different leader and maturity level this year. And he was better last year. He's even better. I think him and Chad's been better. It's been a while since we've had a weird Chad moment. Like, if they can continue moving that direction and they're tough enough to win this league, we have the talent and the scheme and the coaches. It's can we stand up to that 18-game goal?
Ryan?
I'm going to say foul trouble.
I was thinking about picking that one too.
Just foul trouble. In some bigger games, some difficult matchups, we tend to have a hard time guarding without fouling, or putting ourselves in positions where a foul, we're putting the rest in a decision to call foul or not, and it's never going to go the way that we want. And those guys just sometimes will get a bit. Dylan Cardwell, for example, he puts himself in some really bad positions guarding. I gets him into foul trouble. So that would probably be my biggest one. Miles Kelly's one that tends to get in foul trouble a little bit. I think we've seen that in some of the bigger games. So when we're not fouling, we're guarding well, and we're into our rotations, we are, unstoppable, really. When we get out of whack, like we did against Duke, it really throws things off. We had to get to halftime. We had to get back going in the second half to get it back to be in a game that we could win. And so, in those instances, I think that's probably going to be the thing that could hold this team back.
Can I follow up on that? Ike, you probably covered this, but Bruce said that in like August. Like, he said that this team, like, that was his key. Like, can we play defense without fouling? I feel like that's really where we need to make the most strides. So I think, to Ryan's point, I think they've kind of known that they had some pieces that could be really good. And it's, can you take that out of the ref's hands as much as possible with what you can control?
Are you thinking about Bruce Pearl or Sonny Smith? Defense without fouling?
Bruce Pearl.
You sure wasn't Sonny Smith?
Too.
I feel like I've heard that over and over again on the radio call. Right?
For sure.
You
Yeah,
had
yeah,
something
no.
to say?
No, I was just agreeing with him. Yeah, the defending without fouling is going to be because it's specifically from your point guard position, right? For me, right? Because, and I hate it because again, we came into the season thinking JP Pegues was going to solidify that for you. But if your point guard rotation now is essentially Denver Jones and Todd Pettiford, right? And so if you have to get into that third rotation, because Tahad does kind of get into his foul trouble situation sometimes, as good as Denver is, he can't play the whole game at point guard, and you really need to be able to get him off the ball so he can get going offensively. So if you get Tahad Pettiford in foul trouble, and then Denver Jones is in a situation where he's either in foul trouble as well or tired, then you're going to have to play JP at the point, and he just hasn't had it so far this season.
Well, we've been blessed with depth over the last couple of years, you know. So, and Ryan called out one of the two I was going to pick from foul trouble because all of a sudden the rotations get way thrown off. I was more concerned with somebody like Chaney Johnson that gets in foul trouble and has been getting in foul trouble this year. We just don't have a backup power forward, really. Sure, we've been playing Janai at it, we've been playing the double bigs, but when he gets in foul trouble, there's just kind of a weird gap. We're playing Chris Moore again. I'm always watching Chris Moore minutes. When Chris Moore is playing heavy minutes, something went wrong. Thank God for a guy like Chris Moore that plays only when we're in trouble. Same with Lior in the past. Like, it's a good guy to have when things get in trouble. But you, against some of these great teams, you do not want to be getting in those situations. In Rupp Arena, against a top 10 Kentucky, you do not want to have to play Chris Moore that much, you know? So that was going to be potentially what I was going to pick. So I'm glad Ryan picked that already. What I'm going to pick now that I've picked it in the past too, it's an issue when you don't have great guards, and we have very good guards. It's just none of, like, a lot of these great teams in March, a lot of these great teams that win the conference having a great guard that's your go-to player when times get tough. We have not had a ton of great close games so far. I mean, we've played amazing schedule, so we've learned a lot. We've learned a lot more in the past. Usually I have a lot more unknowns in here. So it's been hard to pick, and I believe we're going to win the SEC. So I'm picking something that is, we get in some close games with the number one Tennessee and at Rupp and against Bama, and we have an amazing offense that flows and great passes, and we just don't, I don't know if we have that guard. Maybe CBM's that guy, but personality wise, I don't know if the team is. Maybe Denver can hit a shot. I don't know. We saw him go 0 for Denver.
You're
Is it
forgetting
Pettiford? Is it
guy.
Pettiford? I
It's
know.
Todd.
Is it
Pettiford
Pettiford?
is
It's
that
By
guy.
the end of the
absolutely
year, is it
Todd.
Pettiford?
Yeah,
Are we going to
it's
rely on the
absolutely
five-star
Todd.
freshman to really hit that shot? Maybe we do, but that's what I'm worried about. And I think it comes
Double
down to the same
digits in
thing.
every ranked game.
Same thing that Matt brought up with the league. Like, it's going to have to be a combination of things to lose because we're so good. But the league is so good too that I think it could be a combination of we just kind of sputter a bit and lose a game or two because we just didn't have that guy to hit the shot at the end. We couldn't get the ball around. And you just have another team like Tennessee or Alabama or Kentucky or Florida. The amount of teams you can pick from in the SEC right now that could theoretically be just as great as us. They haven't shown it necessarily in that conference, but we might find out by the end of the year, and we could listen back on this podcast. Wow, we had no idea Florida was just that good, and we lost 2 games, and they only lost 1 or whatever. So, Ike, see you later. Thank you so much for coming. Everybody, go
man.
check out the War Report. Great guys over there. We've been doing a couple collaborations here. Ben's been leading the way too, so thank you, Ben. Thank you, Ike. Go check
Appreciate
them
it,
out.
guys. I'll
Yeah,
check
folks,
you guys
check the
out
show
later.
notes. We'll have all the links to the War Report's channel and their socials there.
So now it's going to get a little wacky with the Jungle Boys. Yeah, I think we've gotten pretty serious with the schedule, pretty serious with what we think could be issues with this team. And if you look up at the end of the year, I believe we all think that we have SEC rings in our eyes. But we know if something goes wrong now, we can look back and kind of pick what we think might have happened there. But here's some more fun ones, I think, going down the stretch here. Are we a better team without Aiden Holloway? If Aiden Holloway was on this team, would we be better than we are right now?
Yes.
Ben thinks
What a
yes.
bait and switch question that is.
I gotta say yes. It's a pure question of depth for me. Having one more point guard that I think would be serviceable. And look, he's hitting some shots now in his new offense with his new team. He's had a lot of inconsistencies, but he's coming off the bench for them. I would rather have him coming off the bench than JP Pegues right now.
Okay, if you say so. Matt, Ryan, you got strong opinions on this? Do you want Aiden Holloway on this team? Is this a shame that he left?
We're a better team without him, no doubt. The way this has happened, but we're one thing away from wishing he was there, and I that's my concern. Like Ben, he's a good player. Everybody, I'm going to be cheering against him just like everybody. I defended him all last year, so everybody knows my thing. He's going to hit shots that are annoying this year for all of us. But he's the fourth or fifth best player on Alabama. He would be the fifth, sixth best player here. I mean, like he would be a good rotation piece. And right now we've built where we don't need him, but I just fear that it would be nice to have him. But then he wouldn't be here because we wouldn't be playing him that much. So it's all a moot point.
So what do you say? You say you rather if you could pick, he'd be on the team right now.
No.
Say
If you
everything else
guarantee
happened.
me-
Everything else happened. We got every other player on this team, and you add
No,
Aiden Holloway.
I like what we have. I wouldn't
All
change
right,
it.
all right.
I would
Ryan?
say no. I would say no too, just because this team relies so much on defensive, ability and guarding on the perimeter, and that's what makes this team. If he would have stayed this year, we probably would not have had a Miles Kelly or something like that. Tahad may have, not been in the position he is right now. So, I'd rather Tahad be taking those shots because he's shown that he can effectively hit them and get to the rim. People forget that the dude just could not hit a layup last year at all and did not drive at all.
One thing I'll remind you though, he led the nation in assist to turnover ratio as a freshman, and that has been another key for this team. So I wouldn't trade him for anybody.
On the perimeter.
Yeah, no, look, I wouldn't give up anybody in this roster for him, but I'm saying if you tell me we could have him for free, I'd take him.
I get tired of talking about it just because it's like so exhausting on X. People just
Can we agree that having Denver as a table setter and just an adult at point guard with this team and this group is just better. It's just a better
he's
setup.
so much more than he's so much more than a table setter though. He's a 3-level scorer at point guard. We haven't had that since Jared Harper.
and he
doesn't
scoring
force anything.
No, and his scoring since the Duke game. You mentioned that stat earlier, the 0 points. I mean, he is any shot he has open right now, he is hitting consistently.
He's something like 19 for 28 since the Duke game from 3.
I would just say there's a reason the offense is. Everybody's bragging about how well the offense is flowing and how well the ball is moving.
I would agree. It's because he's not an isolation point guard, so the ball moves and they run stuff to get the ball moving. And even with Tahad, who can be an isolation point guard, he can be like we talked about that guy at the end of the games. I think he will be that guy at the end of the games now. Like after the Duke game,
Denver's the guy.
No, Tahad.
I totally agree. I agree.
Yes, because the dude shows that he can put the ball on a string, he can work a pick and roll, he can step back. He's a Kemba Walker. We all love to talk about Kemba Walker, point guard. He's that New Jersey type, go get him dog. And like that's not what Aiden Holloway is or was. So I'd rather just have Todd.
And I think there's a
Go
ceiling
back
there
and
with
watch
Todd
that
too.
Houston second half. I mean, it's easy to gloss over it. That was his second game, and he carried us to
And I think
a
he's
win over Houston.
I think he's only going to get better too as a point guard. Like I think we
Well, yeah,
know that
he's
he's a star guy that can make a shot anywhere, that can make anybody miss, drive the ball anywhere. I think he's going to get better as a point guard as the season goes on. And so you're going to add in that if you had the ball in his hand at the end of a game, he can hit a shot from anywhere. He can drive, he can shoot, and he might make a fantastic pass.
The only danger will be, like Ike said, if you find one of those trap games that you love, Jackson, like at Georgia, where we've seen Aiden can sometimes play down to his level of competition because he doesn't feel like he has to bring it sometimes. We haven't seen that in a few weeks.
I mean,
early to start the season, you remember against Vermont, against Richmond, some of those early games, he was not locked in.
I just don't feel like he feels like he's got to make it happen in those, and he ends up making it happen in the big ones.
There's no question now. I mean, unless y'all see something different than I do with the changes we've made, we are closing with Todd Pettiford at point guard.
Yeah, the Duke
we did in that one game.
Well, it's a Duke game, and it's because
the
they were
fouls.
isolating him with Cooper Flag, and it was unstoppable. And we had to make a
everybody on
change.
that floor was 6'4" or taller except Tahad. So it was like when we switched Dylan out at the end of some of those games too. Like
before we shrunk the rotation too. I can't imagine a world where we're not playing Tahad, Denver, CBM to close game.
You know, it's another point too to talk about. Last year we played with 10 all gear. We have teams that win that UConn, eight-ish, seven-ish. I mean, I don't know. It's teams that win the national championship consistently have 8, solid that they're playing. That UConn team had 8 solid the past 2 years. Uh, I I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. We'll find out once we go to the gauntlet that we have 8 that we're rolling it with, and they all know their role. They all know this, and we're not having to worry about sharing 10 minutes and trying to get the most out of those 10 minutes. Like the guys are playing, they know when they're coming in, they know when they're coming out. You know exactly who's being subbed out at the 17-minute mark. Like it flows. It flows.
Here,
And
And
it's
we haven't seen Bruce do this, right? Like, I mean, he has decided
He's leaning on his
before
guys.
conference that we are not going to play Jaheim Hudson unless foul trouble or injury, and we're not going to play Pegues. And Jakai, they're really getting in there, but Jakai's that ninth guy that they're trying to really force in there to Jackson's like delight, right? Like, that's what we
I
want to
think
see.
it's good. I
But
think he's got the potential. And I was gonna say
yeah,
that like he's the only guy attitude is contagious. And he's the only guy on the team that doesn't quite get it attitude wise. And I'm hoping he's a freshman. He's going to learn. He already had his playing situation. I was hoping post that it would really show that he's learned a lot. It's still going to take some time, I think, attitude wise, but he's our ninth guy, right? Or eighth or ninth guy. If Aiden Holloway was on this team, this podcast, the toxic things that would be coming out of my mouth about Aiden Holloway, because Bruce, if he had him on this team, if he stuck around, even if he had everybody else great on this team, he would feel the need to play Aiden Holloway 20 minutes a game. He'd feel the need for Aiden to start or Aiden to play significant minutes, and Aiden just didn't get it. And yet we argued a ton about it last year that he just, oh, don't read into that. Don't read. He just didn't get it. He's still shooting insane quantity of shots at Alabama right now. And I think he would do the same thing here. And it would just, the whole flow of the team would be off. So I totally get where Ben's coming from a depth perspective, because I might be biting my tongue in a day or two if one of our point guards gets hurt and we don't have a guy like Aiden Holloway right there. But from an attitude standpoint, him and Howard on the team, the whole thing would be, the chemistry could be completely thrown off. It wouldn't work in the offense we have right now. Everybody's passing the ball so well and hitting efficient shots. And
And it's been nice.
I'm going to say,
It's been
I
nice
wish
to
him,
see.
I wish him the best, but I do not. You went to
Yeah.
Alabama, and I do not wish you the best. And I think you're not that great at basketball, and you can score, but I'm really glad he's not on the team this year.
And it's been nice to see a guy like Jakai Howard, who it's clear he's young. He's not at the maturity level that Todd Pettiford is yet, but talent wise, everything's all there. And he's been so hard on himself, missing open shots, missing those good shots in the rotation, trying to play the four in the
It reminds
offense
you
is a
of
challenge.
Aiden Holloway last year, getting down on
Yeah.
himself every time he missed a shot. I'm like, pass the ball then.
But you have 14 guys come off that bench when he does those highlight dunks and are picking him up. And you're right. Like, I think those 14 guys can overcome one bad guy. I think more than one bad attitude would be bad. I wouldn't trade a player on this team for Aiden Holloway, but if I found him on the side of the road, I'd pick him up.
All right. And the another big aspect of this is we've had a guy that if you listen to this podcast, you know I'm not afraid to call out when I think a guy is not a vibe fit, not an attitude fit. It's just not quite getting it, even if he's a good player. We had KD Johnson in the last couple of years, which love him for his crazy moments, but it just didn't work chemistry wise on the team. The ball stuck with him. Things got weird with him. Alan Flanagan the same way. And we had to start those guys. We needed those guys. We needed KD Johnson, Alan Flanagan those years. We don't need Aiden Holloway on this team. And Jakai Howard is the kind of guy that would be like that if we had to start him. And we don't. He's a pure agent of like gasoline, energy, whatever. And if things go squirrely, he doesn't really have to play that much. And if things go right, he's bringing a huge thing. And honestly, I put hot takes later down on this thing. My hot take is that Jakai Howard is going to win us a game this year. He's so talented and so athletic. There will be a weird game this year where things are just not quite going right. And we look up and he's hit a couple in your face threes and a couple big dunks that get the team going when everything's going wrong. And we're going to look around at ourselves and say, are we going to give Jakai Howard the MVP for this one? I think so. And we're going to look back at my hot take here. So that's my hot take on that one. I'm skipping a question or two. If anybody's got any hot takes, might as well just give them right now.
I got a pretty hot take. I don't know how hot you guys will think it is. I think Todd Pettiford is going to miss less than 5 free throws the entire season. I think he's going to finish. I think he's going to finish the season shooting between 98 and 99% from that charity stripe. He's getting better at drawing contact and finishing through contact. So a lot of those free throws are just going to be and ones. He doesn't get fouled too much on the perimeter. I think he's going to miss 4 free throws the rest of the year.
Who was that you said?
Todd Pettiford.
Okay. Anybody else a hot take?
I mean, my hottest take was dropped at the beginning of the year when I said the Twin Towers would be starting at the last game of the year, and it seems like it's going to come to fruition. Um, I don't really know of a hot take right now. It's just all so up in the air. It's all, you know, I'm just really excited. I love this time of year with SEC play starting. Like I remember last year, just the feeling of like just angst and like not knowing what to expect. There's so many teams that are out there that like have so much to prove. And there's teams like us that have already proved a lot. So, I think my biggest hot take is going to be that we only lose 2 games.
All right, all right. I like
I,
it. I know that Matt, of all
I,
people, is the least likely to have hot takes. But Matt, if you have something, it's probably like a
Come on,
negative
Matt.
hot
Pop
take,
one
you know?
off.
No, I really don't. I'm fascinated to see what they do with Cheney or Dillon at the end of games. I think that's going to be a really. I wish I knew which. At my gut says they're going to play Cardwell more than Cheney at the end of game situations, which is pretty crazy when you think about Cardwell's arc of like getting to start now and be a starter is a big deal for him in his last year. But like if he's closing games with that Twin Tower lineup, like Ryan predicted, that's like a whole different deal. And it's not because Cheney's not playing pretty well. Like Cheney's doing a great job. That
Is it
leads
gonna be
into
like
our next question. But
a defense for
yeah,
offense situation? Like if it's an offensive last possession, it's Che. If it's defense, it's Cardwell. Or
Even
it really
then,
comes down to if you have a minute or two left, if you
Cardwell's
choose.
averaging 2 assists a game.
All right, Stormer, I got 2 questions before you leave. We'll start wrapping it up here. Are we a better team without Jalen Williams? If you had Jalen Williams on, I think this will be quick on here, but I had to ask it because it's somebody we lost and we talked so much about him last year. We had the Jalen Williams, what was it called?
The
Trial of
Jalen
Jalen
Williams.
Williams last year, and we thought he was so important. And I still love Jalen Williams, and it was a ton of fun to watch him play. But he left, and we look so good. And I think personally, yes, if he was on the side of the road, I would pick him up and he would be on this team. But I think it's crazy that we lose what we were like holding up as like one of these amazing players just to like be such an afterthought at this point halfway through the season. Matt, I know that's your boy, but
this that's a tough that's tough because I have been living in the moment of this year so much that I kind of forgot about last year. And then Matt and I started to resurface some of that stuff on the pod the other night. And I almost let this question enter my mind, but I didn't want it to because I wanted to focus so fully on like what's going on this year that I I'm conflicted because things are rolling so well that I don't think so.
oh wow.
I don't think so, but I think because if we were to have Jalen, we probably would never see the Twin Tower lineup. The connection between the skills that Broome and Cardwell have shown up with their passing probably would have come fruition. It could have been the same type of play that we would have had last year. I guess let's put it that way. So I don't know if we would have elevated any more than where we were at.
I think I'd take him over Cheney and I'd take him over Dillon next to this year's Janai. But it's not a and I think Jalen would be the perfect fit on this kind of team where he doesn't have to be the full guy, right? So I think he'd be great. But this year's great. Again, we've built this beautiful thing. Like it's hard to say it would be better. I just think Jalen's a slightly better player than Cheney. But
Well, and just for a little plug for our conversation we had the other night, Jalen was the talk of some of our top dunks in Auburn history. So adding him to this dunk fest that we're having right now would have been a lot of fun. A lot of
Go
fun.
back and listen to that podcast, everyone. Matt and Ryan go through an amazing history of some of the best dunks in Auburn basketball,
On the fly.
including featuring some of our guests. Yeah.
Matt made a good point, and I'm going to be more adamant that I would want him on this team now. I know Ryan just took the opposite, but Matt, you won me over a bit on this fact that Jalen had the right attitude for this team. He did not have the right attitude, in my opinion, for the last 2 teams where we need him to score. We need him to be aggressive. This season, and like I think there might be some games later on where Cheney's in foul trouble, and we're like, oh crap, or Cardwell's in foul trouble. It'd be really nice if we had another power forward that was competent, like a Jalen Williams, and he is meek enough and not aggressive enough, as long as Bruce didn't like push the issue too hard, honestly. It would come down to being Bruce pushing the issue, honestly, because Jalen wouldn't. So you're right. I would like for him to be on this team. I think he would have been a good, quiet, like successful
Wow.
player.
Credit Cheney and Dillon though. Together, we're only playing three guys in the front court, and Cheney and Dillon have made up for that loss. Like they've been really good.
Ladies and gentlemen, Jackson has completely turned around on his Jalen Williams
Well,
fandom. I love to see it.
It's
Look,
it's the
but
it's
Jackson,
the
you're
attitude
right.
thing. He need to be somebody else the past 2 seasons, and this year it'd be great that he didn't care, like that he's
And
not.
you're right, because on this team, I can find minutes for Aiden Holloway. I don't know where on this team you find minutes for Jalen Williams, but I have to say, you don't have this year's Auburn team without last year's Jalen Williams. Jalen was such a key part in Janai Broom's development as an interior passer, and now we're seeing that role filled by Dillon and Cheney crashing to the basket when Janai gets double teamed and finding those highlight dunks. You go back and watch when Auburn's got really hot towards the end of that year. It was the passing between Jalen Williams and Janai Broom that made the difference.
All right, well, we'll move on to. I know Ryan's got to leave here in a second. This is our final question for the SEC preview. I've asked it in years past because life is all about expectations. Sports is all about expectations. What makes you happy comes down to what you expect out of the team. And you can barely make the tournament. And in the past, we'd feel so happy, so excited that we made the tournament all because we didn't think we would. This year, we think we're going to win the SEC. We think we should be heading to the national title even. So what makes you happy really changes. So I'm really curious to hear, Ryan, what would make you happy at the end of the season?
Nets, baby. I'm putting all of my eggs in this year's basket. So, uh, it's championship or bust for this team, honestly, because I don't think we'll ever have another opportunity like this in a long time.
A national championship.
Yeah.
Okay. Like if we make the Final Four, we won the SEC, we won the SEC tournament, go to the Final Four and lose at a buzzer beater to somebody, you're gonna say you're unhappy that we did not that season was an unhappy season for you. That
No,
you're
I
not
mean,
happy.
Yeah, I mean, no, but like Final Four, yes, I would be happy with that. But I think that this is the if there's ever a year, it's this year. We don't know what next year's gonna like. We don't know what we know what this year's gonna look like. So with what we've done so far, like this is it. And I think the coaching staff knew that coming in this year too, which is why we retained so much and built the team the way we did. And like they're not they kind of are leading on to it, but they're not, that this is it, I think. So it just sets up that would make me very happy if we did that.
That's crazy to me that you had winning a national championship is such a crapshoot. I feel like you got to go lower, but
I mean, if there's ever a point in our history that we could do it, it's now. We've already achieved the Final Four. We've already done those things. We've shown we can win multiple SEC tournament championships, last year for what, at what cost? Like losing in the first round. So like if we were to lose in the first round of the SEC tournament this year, oh crap, that sucks. But then to go play national championship or Final Four like Alabama did, like give me that. I'm all about rings and nets. I would love them, but like this is the year that if we were to put all our eggs in the basket for national championship, it's this year.
War Eagle Anita, War Eagle, Mr. Beautiful in there. Ben?
And to everyone, War Eagle and good night.
War Eagle Ryan.
Oh, can you say it better than Ryan Storm and Norman just did? I mean, we've never been in a position.
Normstradamus.
Normstradamus. We have never been in a position to dream this big. So I don't want to steal any of Ryan's thunder or any of his poetry. That was beautiful. One thing Bruce hasn't done in his SEC play, and this is our SEC preview as we gear up for the toughest Southeastern Conference run ever. We have not run the double eagle. We have not won the regular season conference championship and the SEC tournament in the same season. You want to talk about a challenging feat that is well within our grasp. I think this could be a year where we double-peat. And then if we make it to the Final Four, even if we make it to the Elite Eight or the Sweet 16, like honestly, it's been so long since we got to that second weekend. But if we can dominate this SEC, if we can take this team and win the regular season and then win the SEC tournament, that puts a stamp on the history that this team has made.
Let's see, where'd you put it on here? Double Eagle is what you're calling it here.
Double Eagle, baby.
You had on here a different stat. I like how you've changed some of the stuff on here. You had finishing the year with 5 losses or less, and I was going to roast you for that one because if we lost 5 games after 4 more games after this, and then lost the first game of the SEC tournament, first game of the NCAA tournament, you would just be so upset with yourself. So I like the double league a little better, and I think I'm similar
Well,
to you. But
again,
I'll let Matt go first.
I was thinking about the end of the SEC season. I want to finish the SEC season with less than 5 losses for sure, because that to me says that we're legit national title contenders.
I'm not gonna, since you didn't pick it, I'm not gonna even keep going about it. Matt, what would make you happy this year?
Um, I'll tell you what'll make me happy, but the thing that haunts me with this team already, I'm already feeling the anxiety. This team has to find a way to get to the second weekend in March Madness. We've only done it once. We've only made the Sweet 16 once in Bruce's tenure. This has to be a team that gets past the first. But that's not what will make me happy. I just have this. This to me, this year is less about SEC championships and more about March because of our history, because we've accomplished more in the regular season, the SEC tournament. Ryan said it. We have not had a team this good ever, not even close. We've had some great teams. They're not. They're not this. So, but let me. What makes me happy? I want at least one of the SEC championships, and I mean, it goes without saying, Final Four is the pinnacle of the sport, right? Like, if we make another Final Four, that cements Bruce's legacy. That cements Auburn as a thing. Like, that's huge. But one of the SEC championships, second weekend at least, and I kind of want a 1 seed, guys. Like, we've set ourselves up with such a great resume. I want a 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. Dang it. That's what I want. I want a 1 seed. Okay.
Yeah, it's hard. I'm trying to figure out for myself what makes me happy, and it's important to know these things in life, I think. I think this is young bucks and even old bucks, whatever. I think it's important to have expectations in life and your goals, because if you don't set them, you don't know what makes you happy and you don't know what to pick or whatever. So I like to pick something. But what I wanted to go for was there's three, I've said it a million times on this podcast. There's 3 ways to win in college basketball. You win your regular season, you win your conference tournament, and you go to the Final Four. Those are the 3 big things, in my opinion. If one of those happens, no matter how else the season went, you had a good season and you were happy. This team is so good. I think you have to win or have to do 2 out of the 3 for me to be happy, which is crazy. I hate to even put that on there, but it's just how we are right now. They've set the expectations so high that I feel the need to do 2 out of the 3. So if we might not win the SEC, but if we win the SEC tournament and go in Final Four, feel great. We might not go to the Final Four. But if we win the SEC and the SEC tournament, that on top of it pretty much guarantees we are the #1 team in the nation with the #1 seed. Now, if we go on the first round to 16, that's going to feel very sour grapes. But I'm assuming that if you win the SEC this year and the tournament and you're #1 seed and you're #1 in the nation, you're probably going to make it at least a game or two. Like second weekend, I'm sure. Like,
And remember, everybody, what happens if we're the #1 overall seed? That second weekend is going to be in Atlanta.
yeah, so I'm the only thing I think about when, because like it's easy for me to say you have to have 2 of the 3. That's what I want to pick. But I do wonder if I say that and we win the SEC regular season and we win the SEC tournament and then we go out in the Sweet 16, if I won't leave with little sour grapes. But I think because of how good the SEC is this year and how much love we will get from the pollsters and from the seeding and from ESPN and everybody else about how amazing we are this year, that even if we go out in the Sweet 16, I will still be happy because we'll have built something extremely special this year, more than we've ever been able to do. So that's my pick, is winning, getting 2 out of those 3 big college basketball moments, which is just insane that that's where we're at, that's what would make us happy. Now, if we get 1 of those 3, I will be okay. I'll be good. Make it Final Four, don't win the SEC or the tournament. Okay, well, a little disappointed, but hey, we made it. Yeah, win the SEC tournament, the OT. Okay, at least
Jackson,
we won a ring.
I got
okay.
no, you absolutely not. That was last year's team because there was no expectations and they were not battle tested. This team has 6 quad 1 wins before the calendar turned over. We've beaten 4 nationally ranked teams. That's doubled the amount the entire program has beaten in the non-conference. 1 is not good enough.
Not to get too sappy, but this team has already made us really happy. Like this is historic stuff that we keep raving about, and I'm glad we are. I want this to be marked in time on this podcast because this we did a great job of covering this from beginning to end. I think, like, this has truly been a really special month of basketball that will never go away. And it has raised our expectations to this level. Um, just enjoy watching this team play. Like, this is such a good team. I know for me, I actually feel comfortable watching it. They were down to Monmouth. I didn't care. 2 years ago, I would have been stressed walking around the room, like, because we might lose, we might not hit shots. I just trust this staff and this team, and they may not win everything. They may not go 2 out of 3, but like, I think they have everything right out in front of them. And it's just going to be such a fun ride to see how much they can accomplish. They've already won Maui. They've already done all the stuff Ben said. They've already made history, and we're only in January, or we're starting a new year in January. So it's going to get fun, and there's going to be some bumps in the road, I'm sure, but just don't miss this team, man. Because Ryan said we have kept these seniors. We have put all our eggs in this basket, and they are clearly going all out for this year.
If you guys let me know, Ben or Matt, give me a thumbs up or thumbs down. Are you itching to leave this podcast right now? Because if you're not, I do have one little more thing we could do. I know
Let's
Ben
do one
always
more.
likes to keep us short. The
Let's
one
do one
last
more.
thing, the one last thing I wanted to do was look at the SEC preview for 2023 and see what
Oh,
we
boy.
had in here. We had a Jalen Williams trial. Are we better without Alan Flanagan? We were talking about last year. That was something. We don't have people like Alan Flanagan on the team. Are we better without Wendell Green? I'm hoping we might get one day. We might be able to talk to Wendell. We would love to. I think he's out in Bosnia right now, Serbia.
Kosovo.
Kosovo. But we asked that last year because we've been going through these point guards. Last year we were having fun. All four ghosts said we were having fun. What would make us happy last year? Matt was make the tournament, win 4 out of the 6 of UGA, Ole Miss, and Alabama. Completely different expectations, even though we had a good team last year. Ben's make you happy is win the SEC, win a SEC tournament game. I don't care about the seed. We won the SEC tournament last year, so you were happy
3
last
games.
year. Storm wanted to be top 4 in the SEC. We were top 4 in the SEC. Great Storms. Mine was go make the NCAA tournament, top 25, consistent throughout the year, top 7 seed, and a good offense. Hey, I think we hit on pretty much all of those. I'm not sure what the offense won, but everything else was good. So it's just the expectations, man, compared to last year. Enjoy yourselves, guys. What might kill us? Doesn't matter anymore. What has to be great? Depth of shooting, second chance points, free throw percent, 3-point. We're all over the map last year. This year, we're asking if we don't win the SEC, what is that? So like, man, there's so much more unknown last year too because the at a conference wasn't as great. But I thought it was fun to go through a little bit there, man. It's so crazy how they blend together. We were talking about what it was like to play without Wendell last year, what it was like to play without Flan, and what was happening with Jalen Williams. And this team is just so completely different. What we're talking about is so completely different. It's this transfer portal, every year free agency, NIL. So like each team is just so different than the last. It's just, and I say that, and then we have Janai Broome for 3 years, and Cardwell for 4 years, and maybe 5. Cardwell for 5 years, right? So it's just crazy. I don't know. Thoughts about that last year's SEC? Any other thoughts in general?
I just can't believe what I'm saying. I mean, like you've known me, Jackson. We've had these conversations for years. Have you ever heard me be this positive about anything this easily?
You
I mean,
always
I
like
just
it's like
think this.
a moving scale, and your conservative opinion is, yeah, we might lose one home game this year. You know, like that's the conservative opinion
Yeah,
this year.
I'm the
you
Debbie
know?
Downer.
Yeah,
'Cause we
for
might
that
lose
say we
again.
might lose to a top 25 to one of our 4 or 5 top 25 teams who play at home this year. Yeah.
In
I
any
mean,
other year, literally every other year Auburn's played basketball with Bruce Pearl, I've been like, can we make the tournament? Because I just remember a long time when we couldn't make the tournament, and like I just want to make sure we're in the tournament.
the
And
only
obviously
reason
now it's like I'm worried about it.
the only reason we're hedging our bets is just because of how good the SEC is. Because, like, you're right, Jackson. We could not win the regular season. We could not win the tournament, and this team is still good enough to make the Final Four. Like, that's how deep the SEC looks right now. We may find out that there are going to be some paper tigers in the league. We've already talked about Ole Miss. I'm interested to find out just how good this Alabama team is, especially considering the gauntlet they're going to have to run through. So maybe the SEC is not quite as deep as it appears right now, but the depth of the conference is the only reason why we're hedging our bets. This is Auburn's best team
I think we know
ever.
for sure. I think we know for sure that the SEC is as deep as we think they are because we played so well now in the conference. The question is, like, will there be teams that, you know, are above each other by a lot in the middle, and like
Well,
we'll see how it's going to have to
yeah,
shake up.
well,
It always
typically
someone
what
has
happens
to
is
lose
the
and
middle
someone has
devours
to
the
win.
bottom. Yeah,
It'll just
the
be
middle
interesting
devours
to
the bottom.
we'll be interested to see if it's a lot of changes at the top, or if a team like Auburn, who we kind of think is similar to these other top 5 teams, just pulls away, or somebody else. I don't think so. I think we're gonna have a lot of back and forth in those top couple. Right now, we are predicted to have 2 number 1 seeds, 2 number 2 seeds, and 2 number 3 seeds. That's how insane the SEC is right now.
Last year there was a 4-way tie for second place, and we had to go through some absolutely crazy tiebreakers. And the fact that we got that 4 seed was absolutely massive because Mississippi State had to play an extra game before they got to us. Florida had to go through the tougher side of the SEC tournament bracket to get to us in that championship game. So even just the clawing and fighting for those top 4 seeds that double bye in the SEC tournament, it's going to be the difference between a good Mississippi State team making the final or a good Mississippi State team being burnt out when they run into one of these buzzsaws at the top.
Just do the math. Somebody's talking about Lunardi might have 13 SEC teams in. There's 16 SEC teams. There's not enough wins. There's not enough wins to go around. And I think that middle part of the table, if you will, like it's just going to be a bloodbath for those wins. Every SEC win is going to be so valuable for the teams not named Tennessee, Auburn, Alabama, Kentucky.
Could you imagine if we were Ole Miss? They're just like 5 or 6 years behind, kind of where we're at. They hired like a coach that's had issues from a team that went to the Final Four not that long before them. They've kind of hopped in the top 25 here and there, kind of thing. But they've been a little bit of paper tires, and then you have to play this gauntlet. Like, you have an okay team. Your team's pretty good. It's pretty decent. What, 10 years ago, they probably won the SEC, and now they're going to just get walloped by a bunch of other teams. Maybe they'll be good. I don't know, but they're probably
here's the
gonna
other
get
thing to
walloped.
keep in mind. Florida, statistically speaking, Florida has the easiest path. I think they have like the number 14 or 15 most difficult schedule in the SEC. We're not helped by the fact that we can't play ourselves as the number 1 team in the SEC right now, but we're somewhere near the middle of the pack. I think we're 8th or 9th in total difficulty. We have the one of the harder home schedules, we have one of the harder away schedules, but our home schedule is very, very winnable.
I'm holding on to everybody here. Last 2 things. Got some more reviews. Broom is the MVP. Just accept it and reformat your game analysis accordingly. WDE, that's one of our podcast reviews, 5 stars. Another one, great podcast, 5 stars. Auburn, this is from Auburn, is my fave. Auburn basketball might struggle at point guard play, but if we could put Todd and Denver into one player, that would be the fix. Yeah, let's do some fusion dances like Dragon Ball Z and put these guys together. That
Absolutely
would be
not.
cool.
We need the depth.
And yeah, man, SEC, we're excited. Everybody's excited. It's great to be an Auburn fan. Like, we just went through what would take for this to be a fun season for everybody. I guess I'll just go through and Ben, turn off the podcast and live, but let's talk after the podcast. Matt, you having fun?
Incredible, glorious amounts of fun. We're less than 48 hours from SEC. So much fun.
Ben, you having fun?
I have never had this much fun.
I'm having fun too. This is Jackson Garrett. Thanks for listening to the Jungle Podcast. That was your SEC preview. War Eagle, guys.
War Eagle.
Thanks, YouTube. Really appreciate it. I think last YouTube, Ben or Ryan and Matt stayed on for like 30 extra minutes to chit chat about some of the most obscure Auburn basketball players. We don't have time for it this time, but I think in the future there'll be times where we end up staying on here longer. Chris Thomas, good to see you again. War Eagle to Anita, Pocket Watch, everybody. Tell your friends.
Are amazing.
Canoe Man, like, it's so much fun in the chat. Like, I think that's like one of the, like, it's not a ton of viewers necessarily, but we have fun hearing you guys' opinions. You always bring up good stuff, so thank you. And
a lot of fans that have been watching Auburn since the dark days.
Yeah. All right, and Matt, you can end the live.